Now going to go to what is euphemistically, I think, termed a fireside chat. No fireside, and I've only one guest at the moment. May I ask Dr. Peter Corcoran to come on stage, Mark Bannon, Gar Hines, Brian Cahill, we have Emma, and Florence O'Driscoll as well, please. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask you guys to do the work for me, and you can join in the conversation, as they say on arrival station. And these are two, we need these. Yeah. I'm going to sit here, kind of, so it's a fireside chat standing up. Basically what we're going to do here is just tease out some of the issues that were raised earlier on, and I've spoken to some, not all, of the panelists, and I know that one of the key issues, one of the ones running through everybody's mind is IoT great, and I was actually looking at, was it yesterday I saw either a paper which shows how sad I am that I read this stuff, but that once upon a time in your home that burglars might come in the window, the door, the back door, the front door, whatever. Nowadays with IoT, the burglars, the hackers can come in or will be able to come in every place. So I'm going to start by asking Florence O'Driscoll, who is with IoT sales at Dell, about security now. Has somebody got a microphone? Okay. So Florence, we'll start with you about security.
I suppose there's so much involved in IoT, and I think that's one of the big things I came across today. I mean, where do you start? There's so many factors. I think John Savage showed maybe 8 different layers, and all the parts in between, they all interact, and it creates so much complexity around it. But I think starting out, I think you really have to look at the opportunity, and you have to look at the threat. And if you look at the threat of anything you do around IoT, I think the biggest threat to you and your business is going to be security. The biggest threat to a provider for an IoT solution is not being able to architect security around it. So, I mean, I don't think I have to go into detail and say, hey, what's the impact to you directly in your business? But I think we've seen it, a history of it, that if you do have a security malfunction, whatever, you know, it really can damage your business. Particularly if you're a small business, it may mean you're not going to get off the ground. If you're going a large business, you know, it's going to have serious repercussions. I do think there is, we do a lot in security, and we always say, like, think security first. I think an awful lot of the reputable providers in IoT solutions think the same, and I think maybe Brian might speak it later. I visited Nimbus Center in CIT, and I was really impressed that they have such expertise on security. It's something that they call out to all their business and so on. So I think it really needs to be in the forefront of everybody's mind.
That's a perfect cue, Brian, to bring you in, and you can talk to us about that from CIT.
I suppose, like, when we talk about security, there's always a number of drivers that focuses our attention on security. I suppose being part of the Nimbus organization, and for anyone in the academic area, we're rubbing shoulders all the time with European collaborators, and this is really important. Some of the projects we purposely get involved in essentially influence legislation on cybersecurity across the EU, and this is an ever-changing landscape, and and it changes on a daily basis. I suppose everyone here who in the room has had the task of looking after a server in a past life possibly will probably realize that maybe during Christmas time we have an extra amount of activity on people trying to hack into that server. There seems to be a common trend that during periods of leisure during the calendar year, we seem to have spikes of interest in accessing, let's say, various network devices. This is, you know, something that needs to be considered, both again as a driver in the IoT space. We talked a little bit about survival of IoT businesses or whatever, and I think maybe later on I'm kind of changing the topic away from security a little bit.
All right.
One thing we're involved in at the moment in Nimbus is rolling out a living laboratory in Mallow Town. We find that taking our researchers out of their bunkers and placing them into the community. We're harvesting some real-life issues and real-life problems where the IoT industry can only provide an answer for. So this is actually a very fertile, innovative environment, and one that we extend an invitation now to industry to come and join us on that journey with that living laboratory. You're getting a lot of invitations today, either be it from Dell or whatever, but we have a very little modest setup in Mallow that we are very ambitious about, and we're very interested to see, let's say, industry undertake maybe a pilot or, let's say, an experimental exercise involving cohorts of the community available in this catchment region. So by getting involved with us, you're getting involved with the Cork Smart Gateway, and with that we can go on a journey together that may involve some of the people on this stage. So
People say that on the Sunday Business Show, you're charged for an ad.
yeah, well, actually, the funny thing about it is that's another thing about IoT, and I don't think you're going to address it here today, but the whole business model associated with IoT is still up for grabs. It's a really hot topic. I've been involved in many forums, and no one can answer that question.
We can get to that. Can I just remind anybody who wants to ask a question, please put up your hand. I will get to you with the mic, because I now want to go to Emma Dowling. Emma is an archaeologist. Emma is an archaeologist, but you're also myoctopus.com. You might start by telling us what is myoctopus.com.
myoctopus.io, not myoctopus.
Oh, it's down here's.com, I promise.
myoctopus is a smart home platform. It's open hardware, open software. It will be like a smartphone. You download apps to it. We're creating an open source community around the hardware and the software. What else would you want me to tell you?
Well, if you can answer me about where does that bring, like, Florence is saying, talking about a very big picture about security. You can bring it down to the micro level.
Okay, yeah, well, being open source, we are planning with security from the very beginning. We're creating a device that has on-edge computing, which means all calculations can be done on the device, all data can stay on the device or within the home network, because obviously if you have more than one device in your home, you may have 3 or 5, and they will intermesh together and work together. We're using Intel Edison at the moment to power it. So, okay, we can't prevent a determined hacker from hacking your home, but we can do our best to make it hard to reach your data. And some of this data is very sensitive, and it does seem like it's a big issue moving forward and very important to think about, especially around the home, because the data there is very sensitive, and yet I feel there's not quite an awareness yet of how sensitive this data will be for people. It's sleep patterns, toilet patterns, living patterns, you know.
If I can bring it from the micro there, back again, Gar, if Gar takes it. Gar Hines, you're with HP. You might tell us, first of all, what you do with HP, and then maybe address into the security issue. We will go on to other issues as well. And please put up your hand for questions.
So, Gar Hines from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. So, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, much like Dell, have a big play in the IoT space. So, since HP split into two back in November, one of the key pillars for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise going forward is IoT, because it touches on so much of Hewlett-Packard's core work. So, in terms of, so you've got the devices, you've got your gateway devices. What do you do with that data? Where do you store it? What software do you run on top of it to analyze it, to report on it? And then the degree of consulting that's involved in setting up the IoT projects, etc. My particular focus is around the big data and analytics space. And obviously, IoT is going to have a huge impact in the big data and analytics space. So the level of data that we have to currently deal with is nothing compared to what we're going to have to deal with in 5 and 10 years' time once the IoT really takes off. I guess the piece that I'm particularly interested within that area is the sort of conversations we're having around big data and analytics for IoT. When big data first started kicking off, we were seeing very technology-driven conversations. So talking about storage, etc., of the data, but not really having a business question, business value-driven conversations with the key stakeholders. I guess what I'm interested in is what are we going to see in the IoT area? Are we going to see the same sort of conversations? Are they going to be initially technology-driven conversations where you're focused on the sensing without where the business value, the analytics you're doing on top of that aren't quite as clear. The business value side of IoT isn't as clear, and that might kind of lead on to the business model side of things as well. So yeah, just in summary, the huge impact that IoT is going to have on the big data and analytics space, I think it's crucial.
Next speaker is Dr. Peter Corcoran, who, I love the description of yourself, Peter. You're an intermittent entrepreneur. I think anybody who's been through the recession over the last couple of years might also be described as an intermittent entrepreneur. You also happen to have about 200 patents, so we're into the realm of the big brain and stuff like that. Have you any big thoughts about what we're talking about?
Yeah, well, I thought I might add, I'm also editor-in-chief of the IEEE Consumer Electronics magazine.
You may add in anything you wish.
And, well,
big ads
no,
over here.
not doing a play. IEEE is a professional body, but so I don't have a company. I'm not pitching anything. And I was originally involved in IoT back in the 1990s, doing early prototypes.
Now that is interesting in itself, because 1990s, people are going, nah, didn't exist.
Oh, yeah, no, 1996, first paper.
I'm not denying you, I'm just thinking, I
First
see
research
people out there
paper
saying,
connecting devices to the internet on a local bus. But anyway, let's not go there. We're talking about today and what's going on today. So I thought what I'd do for this, we're talking about security. Let me tell you a scary story. So who knows what a Nest thermostat is? Okay, so a few of you do, but just in case you don't, it's a company that was bought about 3 years ago, bought by Google for $2 billion. So Nest makes a very clever thermostat that connects into your heating system. It also connects to your smartphone and to your open network. And it basically figures out, your lifestyle, what you're doing, when you're coming home, where you are, how far you are away from home, when you're driving home, and stuff like this. It was bought, I guess, by Google as a gateway into what we call Internet of Things. So I recently had an article, so the reason I mentioned the magazine, I had an article from someone who went to the Black Hat conference. And at this conference, they saw some guys present basically a hacker paper on how to get into your Nest thermostat. So you just need to generate a power cut or get into the house when the power cut's on. You grab it, you get the thing when it's rebooting. And you can then access where somebody is and track them. You can get a lot of very dangerous information about them. Now, it's not straightforward to hack that device. It takes a bit of work and a bit of effort. But on its own, might not be terribly valuable. But as I said recently in another talk, imagine if you could hack a bunch of Nests in a city in the US, so you can hack 10 or 20,000 homes, and you can now track where all those people are. And you can sell that information to people. That becomes extremely valuable information. So this is the kind of thing that people haven't thought about in respect to the Internet of Things. There's a lot of new risks that we haven't really thought about or evaluated yet. And it is the big issue, I think. In combination with security, I also mentioned privacy. And that particular story also mentions how all this data about you that's useful in a certain context is also now out there on the network. So there's scary stories, and there are approaches to this. But I thought that would be my
that's not a bad
story
start.
for today.
Yeah, you've upset a lot of people, including Google. And if I can't tweet at the same time, but I would love to trend again. We're down about number 6 or 7 last time I looked. If you wouldn't mind, because I think Peter's comments there are very interesting. People might be interested in following up on that. Do you remember, as I discussed with Tony before, all of this is being recorded? Yep, so everything here will be available online in Monday off. Mark, we've heard from before. Mark, hard question to you. When you made your presentation, you said very hard, you didn't say impossible, very hard to hack, but you're hackable.
I'll start off by, I don't know if anyone heard my phone going off there, but basically we're all here talking about security. That was a security device someone had pressed out there on the demo stand. There's an SOS button, and alerted my phone. So, Sigfox on that type of application in terms of security works. So it was a good example, but sorry for disturbing everyone. So security in Sigfox, because it's narrowband technology, there's lots of channels basically that a radio frequency message can communicate to the network with. And to jam a security device, you would have to jam 1900 channels at the same time. And the power to do that is colossal. It's equivalent, some estimates, of shutting down a whole city of GSM stations. So it's not impossible, but you're definitely going to be noticed that you're doing it. So Securitas Direct, as I mentioned, rolled this anti-jamming device. It actually sits along their existing cellular security systems, which when they're being jammed, the Sigfox device knows they're being jammed and alerts the security system. So that's it. It's again, very simple device, but huge application. And in Ireland, it's not widely known. Any professional thief carries these jammers in their pocket and just shuts down your security system at home and your business or whatever. So
That seems to be a problem, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I see a gentleman or somebody at the very back there? Were you looking to ask a question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just wondering if you could
Oh,
give
it's a woman,
some,
sorry.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yeah. Sorry, I was...
Some tangible examples of where you've gone into, say, a B2C corporate to help using your big data analytics to help them either grow revenue or improve customer engagement.
Who wants to take that? Yeah, please.
So within HPE, on the big data analytics side, I know it's going a little off topic, but so what we that's based. We've got a dedicated business group around that. So there's the HPE big data group, and they've got a set of out-of-the-box solutions that work in areas like social media. They've got a smart cities solution out of the box, and then with some additional consulting, you can take that and really customize it for your particular use case. So to bring things back to kind of an IoT area, an example of that would be Auckland. So HPE have partnered with the Auckland municipality to roll out a smart city solution for them. So integrating with all their traffic monitoring, pulling all of that data back, presenting it back to the traffic management people, etc., municipality management. We do similar sort of things for social media, for marketing, etc.
Anybody else on the panel want to take that?
Yeah, so within Dell, we have a company called Statistica. So that was a company we acquired a number of years ago. So they do data analytics. I don't have examples because I don't work in the Statistica function myself. I'm not in the analytics side of it. But they have, I think, a big presence in the pharma, big presence in manufacturing. I think Stephen mentioned earlier, a proof of concept we're doing. Statistica, he mentioned analytics software on that. So we work with that manufacturing company here in Ireland, which is doing the analytics around their environment and just to cut down failures, etc. So yeah, that would be part of our portfolio we'd be working with our customers on.
Okay, you're beginning to do my job for me. This gentleman here.
Hi, Tom O'Kelly from Activo. Just a quick question to all of you, really. On big data itself, as I understand it, there are two types of data. One where a company will install your sensors and it'll get data from within the company, and that's applicable only to their business. Then you've got big data, which is data from loads of different sources, different companies. And I know there's no price list. Can you give us examples of what the value, the cost to obtain that data would be? How much would somebody pay for that big data? I know there's no menu for this, but are there any examples of how much it would be?
I have the microphone in my hand, so so just to start, just to understand the value of data. I mean, I'm not sure whether you can put a numeric value on the value of data. I mean, it's actually very, very difficult. I'll give you an example. I spoke to an organization, and again, it was talk about how do you start doing an IoT project? And we said, well, do you know what? Like, we can take a subset of your data, and do you know what? We will run it through our Statistica, ask the business questions, and see what the output is, and if there's value in that, then you can start spending money investing on it. So that company went away and they said, yeah, I'll get you that data. Then they found out their licensing agreement from the software provider. The software provider has rights over that data. So the point I'm making is data is everything. Like, there's software companies with licensing models, but they still want the rights on that data because data is so powerful. You can make business decisions on it. It can change the course of your business, about how you go to market. It gives you a competitive, a huge competitive edge. But in terms of, I'm not sure what the question is there numeric value on it? I don't think anybody can put a figure. It's down to the holder, but some companies receive more value than cash itself. I would expect, yeah, there is numeric value, but I mean, it's down to each stakeholder what the value is to that data.
So, to clarify a little bit, in terms of the breakdown you mentioned about kind of external and external data sources, it doesn't quite work like that. So the big data is all about, they say the V's, so volume, variety, velocity. The source of it could be all internal data, but it could be coming from your CRM system, you could have sensors, etc. But that's still big data. But in terms of the price side of things, it is typically the external data sources that you have to pay for. Social media would be the kind of the traditional example there. So if you're looking for Twitter data, for instance, so if you're a big marketing company, you want access to all of the tweets. So let's say you're monitoring the US elections, you would have to go to a Twitter partner called NIP. They give you access to the Twitter fire hose, and they charge on the volume of data that you provide. So there's no fixed cost. It depends on the exact data source that you're going to, and there'll be different pricing models around it.
Peter, do you want to take that?
Just give a couple of comments. In the context of big data, I think a lot of people have been talking about the cloud today. I've heard that mentioned a few times. An interesting statistic is that over 80% of network traffic on the cloud, on the internet as a whole, is inside the cloud. It's not to end users, it's actually inside that large structure. So some people would say once you've put something out there, you've given out some data, or it's come from somewhere, there are people busily processing and analyzing it. Now, with regard to monetary value, I'd say the people who are gathering this data, and we all know them, say phone companies, Apple is gathering it, Google are gathering it. They're figuring out different ways to use it and to manage it. In general, they're not really interested in selling it to people because they would see it as a key strategic advantage. Now, there may be specialized or limited data sets that you can get access to, but I'd say in most corporate situations, this is actually a key part of their strategic long-term thinking. And I think while it's there and it has huge value, it's going to be hard to actually find it for sale. Well, let's say it's become a key part of the strategic thinking. What can we do? We've got all this stuff now. And also very important, we have the tools, right? There's a huge growth now in the last couple of years in what's called deep learning research, which are new ways to analyze data structures that we didn't even think about before. So just to give a simple example, if you've got an iPhone, how many people have an iPhone? Does anyone use Siri? Basically, Siri is a fairly smart, intelligent assistant, and now everybody, Microsoft is trying to do and Google is doing. But the idea there is actually when you're doing stuff with Siri, that data is going back to Apple, and they're using that to make Siri better. Right? So there's constant use of your commands into Siri to train it and make it perform better. And that's a good example where we wouldn't have thought years ago about sending all our audio data back, processing it, and then using it on a regular basis. But now smartphones have that capability, and the network is usually fast enough to do that. So there are lots of new ways of using data. A lot of the value has yet to be created. I guess that's partly why we look at Apple and stuff.
I've been in meetings with Tom O'Kelly, and that is a Tom O'Kelly question for sure. But I think I get, we'd be looking at it from the other angle. So I gave the example in Amsterdam of the sensors in the bin telling the waste management company when they need to refill. And they reduced their trucks in Amsterdam from 20 to 5 within a year. So that's the value to them in that data. And Sigfox is very cheap to get that data back, you know, €1 to €10 a year subscription per device. So, I mean, there's one angle, all the data's in the cloud, what do you do with it? Then there's the other angle, okay, I can get new data that I could never get before. So, clear business models is thinking it out, and what can I learn from that?
Opportunity or threat? Emma, do you want to take? And then I'll go to you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we also didn't mention I'm actually a student here in GMIT as well. I'm actually studying the Springboard HDIP in software dev, which fingers crossed won't get axed. The Springboard programs are wonderful. Also Turlock there, I've been kind of learning a lot from him too. Anyway, about data, looking at a smart home, we have 6 onboard sensors and we'll be able to read data from quite a lot of the devices in the home, and we're very aware of this data issue. It seems, as regards the user, as regards our security scares, especially at the beginning of this year, data transparency is very important moving forward, and it seems big business has been holding on to this data so far, but they do need to be a lot clearer with people. Otherwise, we may have a scenario where people start suing for their data and start wanting money from big companies. All it takes is one person to get paid for their lives data, and you know, we're kind of like in a very challenging situation there. Does anyone?
Is there a lawyer in the house? They're all going to get very excited at the idea of that.
What, that you could? Yeah. Well, what?
Which is?
That's true. Chris Tansey has managed to make quite a lot and do quite a lot by connecting himself, hasn't he? Is he the only connected human in the world, or are there others?
Well, you could, I promise I will come to you both.
Just a real small point about data and the value of data. Like, we're doing projects with like ICBF for the farmers among us. We're very familiar with ICBF. It's a very comprehensive database targeting, let's say, the reproductive capabilities of our, let's say, bovine herd in Ireland. Those people realise they're on a very, very serious asset in the country. But they seem to have a moral obligation in supplying data free to SMEs that want to use it. They're not interested in the power of, let's say, exploiting the data that they have. So we see a flavour of that happening. And I was in Finland a lot this year, and we see an awful lot of open data projects where local authorities are, let's say, releasing data to the general public to develop apps and services. And I think we're going to see more of that.
Now, finally, gentlemen.
Question on software skill sets. All the universities on the early labs in acronym lists of technology, they would have progressed much than you thought they were. What are these software skill sets that you think that are efficient to be specializing more on?
Peter, can I throw that at you?
Skills. I think perhaps there's a tendency actually to, in recent years, to move away from the fundamental skills. And I suppose, well, first of all, I'm not a head of department, so I'm not
Even better.
responsible for managing programs. I'll give you an anecdote which I found a bit unusual. This year I said to one of my classes, I asked them to read an essay from about 25 years ago called "In the Beginning was the Command Line," which is about the early days when we used to type everything into computers. Now, the interesting thing is you can still do that. Even on a smartphone, you can still hook into it. And you can access it through a terminal and you can type basic Unix commands. But unfortunately, a lot of our students these days are brought up in a GUI graphics environment. They're pointing and clicking and doing a lot of things, and they're very easy for them. I think one of the problems we have is they've actually forgotten that there's a computer there. So one of the things in this essay, it said that operating systems, and it goes back 20 years ago, so it's talking about the old Microsoft Windows Mac rivalry in the early days, and then Unix being the old legacy 1960s program. But of course, most of your smartphones are now based on Unix. Okay, Android is essentially a derivative of Linux, which is a free version of Unix, and Mac OS and iOS as well also have their roots in the old Unix operating system. So one of the key points of the essay was that operating systems will eventually become free. Now, what I found strange was that almost the entire class, I think about 4 people in the class, didn't come out saying, oh, Windows is the biggest operating system, Windows is the best, Windows has the whole market. And they all forgot that they've got a smartphone in their pocket that's a computer as well, and it runs an operating system, and is in fact, you know, has a lot more. There's about 200-300 million computers in the world. There's like 2-3 million smartphones, and pretty soon there will probably be more smartphones than people. A lot of them will be in Africa being repaired, but that's another story. So to come back to what we're teaching people, I think we need to go back and teach them the basics rather than teach them a lot of fancy modern stuff that maybe doesn't actually tell engineers how the basic system works. So he might come to an education. I'm trying to capture as much of that. I did try to capture that in my own courses.
Yeah, I'll keep the answer very, very short, and I'll keep it high level. There are 2 areas where we think there's going to be skill shortages, and we'd like to see colleges and universities developing, and that's going to be the 2 topics we already spoke about, that's security and data analytics. I think that's where the spatiality needs to be focused on.
Want to take a question, a quick question? So I see that the judges are in the house, so it's comfortable to have them.
Declan Lyons is my name from Enterprise Ireland. So I think the panel have been getting off very light with easy questions, so I'm going to, on behalf of the state organisation, ask a very difficult question, and it's to do with the business model. Enterprise Ireland, like other state agencies, the IDA and SFI, would be interested in where the state should put its resources in trying to harness and harvest the best opportunities that Internet of Things can bring us. So I'm just asking the panel and maybe the audience if they have any views on this. I mean, where do the most opportunities lie? Is it in our primary production systems? Agriculture has been one of the company areas that we mentioned, the calf collar. Or is it engineering industries or pharmaceutical or medical device? And that's a question, is it a business-to-business opportunity or is it a business-to-consumer opportunity? Ultimately, somebody has to pay for this, and I'm reminded of WhatsApp being free, bought for $16 billion by Google, and there's a price to be paid ultimately for everything. So,
Ryan wants to take this one.
So this is a real bugbear of mine as well, the business model issue. So one way that I tackle this competition, or this question rather, is I get the likes of yourself from Enterprise Ireland and IDA into a meeting room in Nimbus once a year, and we ask that question, what industry is contributing most to the country's GDP? Now at the moment, top of the charts is the manufacturing industry. So we're actually looking at, let's say, maneuvering maybe our focus in Nimbus to IoT for the factory floor. At the moment, we're dealing with a number of plants in Cork area, and there seems to be an awful lot of information that's missing from their supply chain processes that IoT can fit the bill. So I think the smart factory area is definitely an area we're considering, but I have to say there's a euphoric approach for precision agriculture at the moment. And as I was just talking to one of the people here, I'm actually a part-time farmer myself, I really queer the amount of revenue in that market. But I really think that smart factory and an area that's contributing largely to Irish GDP needs to be considered strongly.
Mark, do you want to take one?
Yeah, Declan, I guess really IoT touches every industry. I mean, give you some examples of the products with our particular technology. Sigfox, I talked about the healthcare device monitoring care services saved the HS or the health service in France 1.5 million within 6 months. 10,000 of them employed. Hugely disruptive in terms of having oversight of where the employees are in the field and that they're providing the right level of service. I really think the dementia market, again, it's set to double over the next 7 years. And it's really about what can you put in the home that can allow the sufferers to live there independently for longer. Sensors like, are they out of bed? Are they using the cooker? Have they gone to the toilet? Have they taken their medicine? Things like that. It's called the silver economy, that market. We're seeing a lot of development. We work with all companies from large multinationals to startups and even people with ideas and concepts. And I said earlier, you're really only limited by your imagination, and that's really the case. But other Sigfox countries look to Ireland for solutions in agriculture and marine. And they're really, okay, when's the next agriculture product coming? Things like monitoring the health of your herd, soil and crop type information, monitoring the growth rates and the soil moisture content. And then our coverage goes about 150 kilometers out to sea, which is unheard of unless you're relying on satellites, which are hugely expensive. So they're the areas we're looking to do a project with the Connect group, SFI funding. So we're going to put your money into that. We're going to see what we can come up with for 150 kilometers out to sea and agriculture. So they're the two areas I'd like companies in Ireland to focus on.
I'm going to go to this gentleman here just before I do. Anybody want to say anything else? Happy to go here? Okay, gentleman.
Hi guys, just a quick question. So IoT, we know it's been around for a while. I'm wondering, have you any examples or any use cases of its pairing with the more embryonic technology being blockchain? Perhaps you might have any insights or any kind of ideas you could give from across your actually involved in?
Peter, you've been out since 1996.
Just to, I couldn't peter off there, but yeah, blockchain is at such an embryonic stage that you're not really going to see any enterprise level applications for another 4 or 5 years. I think the IoT plus blockchain, it has great potential if you can find the right use cases. I think the problem is, I guess maybe much like IoT might have been a couple of years ago, there's so much buzz around blockchain, it's hard to see through the cloud and see exactly what are the key strong use cases for blockchain. So at the moment, there's so much hype coming from the financial services sector. It's being touted as it's going to solve every single financial services problem. But when you dig down into it, and then you try and apply it to other sectors, it's a relatively niche set of use cases that you can use for. Having said that, that's kind of the current instantiation of what blockchain looks like. It's definitely going to iterate, it's going to evolve, it may become more applicable to other domains. So the supply chain domain is a particular one that we're interested in blockchain for, but when we looked at its applicability to blockchain, with sensors, with IoT, it's not there at the moment. We're looking, 5, 10 years down the road, depending on how things change, there could be a really nice fit for IoT and blockchain.
Peter?
As I was saying, it's a fairly new technology, blockchain. It's actually a really cool technology because it's an anti-hacker technology designed by someone who was a hacker. It's an interesting model, but I won't go into technical stuff. There's a few good use cases for it. Unfortunately, I can't tell you about them because I haven't patented them yet.
I don't believe him.
But it is a very nice technology. It's actually quite clever because you kind of give all of the kind of control aspects, you make them public, and you don't make the core secrets public. You make a lot of the thing public. And you actually rely on the fact that a lot of different people have access to it. So in order to get ahead of the blockchain, you have to own 51% of the computing resources on the network. So that means if it's a completely public network, you put it all out on the internet, and there's hundreds of thousands of people who are part of that network. Somebody has to own half of that. So if you think in a large scale in terms of the internet, you have to own half of the internet to be able to catch up, get ahead of the proper transactions. So I think it's a really cool technology. You're right that it's quite new and a lot of applications haven't been figured out yet. The core idea of cryptocurrency is a very interesting one, but there are a lot of other ones. I've seen research papers actually on building whole legal frameworks within blockchain, but cool technology. technology. We're going to see a lot more of it in the next few years.
That, in broadcasting terms, is a perfect segue for me to ask you the next question. I'm going to ask all of you a final question. Now, two of you probably are going to talk about your own businesses. Where are the opportunities in IoT? For anybody sitting here thinking, I know it's vast. We've discussed vast. We've discussed trillions and zillions. Something obvious.
Well, I'll just be very quick. You can't compete on hardware, right? I'm in the consumer industry. You cannot compete on hardware. The prices and the costs and the scales of manufacture in China, just forget it. Where you can compete is on a vertical service. Bring your product and bring you closer to the customer through interacting better with the customer. Could be a small business, could be individual consumers. But make a nice vertical niche, because you'll also get much better margins. Consumer industry is crazy. You're scraping cents, and in many cases, consumer companies are losing money all the time.
Mark, you may as well discuss Sigfox again and say, here is the opportunity.
You have to take every opportunity as it comes. Yeah. I don't know, there's really different industries that are going to be impacted by it. I mean, you think of the concept of a sensor being deployed on something.
But you did say it's vast.
Yeah.
Just give me one. There's something that tickled your brain saying, if I wasn't too busy setting this up, I'd be doing this.
Well, if I wasn't too busy setting that up, I would have made the GPS tracker for dementia. So that market, and I've already spoke about it.
All right, so what's the next one?
Sensor for did they get out of bed on a panic alarm. It's there before, but they have their drawbacks. And technology, Internet of Things technology now makes it easy and simple to use these new solutions.
Here's a good one.
Now, you heard it here first.
This is a freebie, okay? So there's a lot of issues I heard recently on the radio about farmers having dogs attack sheep, right? So you do a very simple add-on for sheep, right? And when the sheep gets attacked, you're going to hear the dogs barking, you're going to hear noise. Trigger some messages on your network.
That's out there already.
There you go, that's a nice one. Florence.
I think the opportunity really is, I think back to Peter's first point, is niche vertical specialization. The way Dell see it is that, everything's open standard. We talked about the gateway. You can build, that can become a vanilla box, and you can build your operating system, your security, analytics, and so on it. But really, we see it. We're not going to be building an automation company. We're not going to be a transport specialist software company or anything like that. But there are companies out there who are going to specialize there and going to become very, very successful. There's going to be a lot of technologies out there. Some of those technologies that these companies will use to make themselves very, very successful. I think the companies that will be successful within that are going to be people who see the trends of digital technologies, of where digital technologies can take them. I mean, if you use two of the biggest examples in the world today, probably, the biggest taxi company is a software company. Uber, they don't have a taxi. Airbnb are the biggest B&B company in the world, and they don't own one single property, or B&B property at least. So it really is about, I think, niche vertical specialization, and companies who are successful there, I think will disrupt that marketplace and take that industry to the next level.
Gar?
Yeah, so I guess we've covered the key verticals already around manufacturing, healthcare, precision agriculture. But maybe to throw out kind of a more horizontal one that is an area that I'm interested in. So maybe specific analytics for the IoT domain across both the gateway nodes and the more traditional columnar databases, Hadoop, etc. So a specialization around that can cover more of the vertical use cases.
Emma?
Okay, well, obviously at the moment, smart homes. No, but seriously, I think it is about the user, and definitely one important vertical is the wealth of data that you can put it into a form for the users. I have a flu here, so I apologize for slowness. I know Peter said hardware doesn't make money. However, we're going to be selling our hardware parts in the next few weeks to just generate a revenue stream, but also as a service to the bigger kind of community, the DIY community. people who like to build and fiddle with Arduino or Edison Raspberry Pi, and also because we would like to find this ourselves. So look out for the hashtag #MakerDream.
Okay, Brian? And I think this may be the last contribution because we will have to move on.
So the nice thing about IoT is extremely flexible. So the advice that we'd have today is get the solution right for one domain and then quickly move on to the next. And an idea that we're focusing on at the moment a lot is a lot of energy optimization solutions using IoT that will have applications for assisted living.
Okay, I think that is it from our panel. So thank you all very much, all 6 of you. So a big round of applause.